Hello, it's Gretchen, and welcome back to my channel. So those of us with piercings, something we don't necessarily think about in the beginning, but may think about later on is scarring, and what may be left behind if we decide to eventually take a piercing out. How can we help with scarring? Something to keep in mind with piercings is that scarring is almost inevitable. You are creating a puncture wound, either in your face, in your ears, in your body. You're creating a type of puncture wound. Depending on how your body heals that piercing, there may be a scar left behind when you eventually decide to take out the jewelry for good. Scarring can even just form while you still have jewelry in. But we don't really want to think about that until the time comes, and then we're sitting there going like, how can I minimize the appearance of this scar? I don't want to be dealing with this scar the rest of my life. The piercing was fun for a while. I'm over it now. I want to get rid of the scar. So for today's video, I thought I would look at some methods to help minimize the appearance of piercing scars, specifically once you've decided to remove jewelry, retire a piercing, or maybe you were unfortunately forced to retire a piercing. How can you minimize the scar left behind? So the first thing that you need to do is determine what type of scar was left. Now there are several different types of scars that you may notice with a piercing. One that everyone seems to think that they get, not necessarily the case. They're actually not as common as you would think, are keloids. Now for this particular video, I am not going to be discussing methods to minimize a keloid because they take a little bit more extensive work in order to minimize their appearance or get rid of them entirely. For this video, I'm going to be focused more on hypertrophic scarring as well as atrophic scarring, two very common types of scarring you may experience with piercings. Now before we get to the tips and tricks for minimizing your scarring, you kind of got to determine what type of scar was left behind. Is it hypertrophic or is it atrophic? The basic understanding between the two is hypertrophic is a raised bump. So if you look at your piercing site and you notice a little bit raised skin, that could be a hypertrophic scar, whereas atrophic is the opposite and it's more of a groove or an indentation left where the piercing was. So the first thing that you need to do is determine the type of scar that you're dealing with. Now, these tips and tricks can apply to both hypertrophic and atrophic scars. However, there are some that will work better with one type, and then there are some that will work better with the other. Something to keep in mind with hypertrophic and atrophic is which one you have could be determined by a number of factors, such as placement, as well as how the healing process went for it. So for example, you may find that you come across atrophic scarring in facial piercings more often than you would for ear piercings. You may come across hypertrophic scarring in the body more often than you would anywhere else. So like your navel piercing. May even come across it for like nipple piercings. Sometimes you'll even see it for your lobe piercings. But sometimes placement of a particular piercing may be more prone to one type of scar or the other, as well as a healing process. If a piercing rejected at all, you may be more prone to one type of scar as opposed to the other. But the first thing you need to do is determine which one you have. The thing about hypertrophic and atrophic scarring as opposed to keloids is that you don't usually need extensive work done to minimize the appearance. Now, if you want to get rid of it entirely, you may need to take some steps to minimize the appearance even more. But for the most part, if you're just looking to lessen its appearance, a lot of this can just be done at home. So what are some methods that you can use to minimize scarring and potentially even get rid of it entirely? The first one is silicone gel. Now, I am not as well knowledge about silicone gel. However, I did find in my research that it does help with both types of scarring, especially with hypertrophic because it helps diminish the size of the raised bump that forms. And with atrophic, it essentially fills in the groove left behind. You can also find a lot of like scar gels. I know one brand that I particularly like is Derma E. They have a scar gel that is really nice. You just like put it on the site, you just keep up with that routine and you'll notice a decrease in size over time. Something to keep in mind though is none of this is gonna get rid of a scar just like that. It's gonna take some time, and by time I mean it could take months. So don't expect something to just overnight decrease your scar size. Another thing you can use, and this is my personal favorite, is jojoba oil or things like bio oil. Bio oil is what I used on my weight loss surgery scarring. And so I hardly have a scar left from my weight loss surgery. Essentially what jojoba oil and bio oil do is moisturize. A lot of people also use things like bio oil on stretch marks. It helps minimize that appearance. So if you want to go more of that route instead of like the silicone gel, I definitely recommend either jojoba oil or bio oil. You also find jojoba oil with like moisturizing if you have stretched lobes. It's just good in general for your piercings. It helps moisturize, but if you're looking to diminish a scar, definitely use one of the two if you like to go that route. Something else that some of us may just have in our skincare routine is retinol. Retinol has also been proven to diminish the look of scarring. Retinol has been proven to actually smooth out scars. So again, this might be something that works for both hypertrophic and atrophic scarring. Hypertrophic, it kind of flattens out that raised scar. Atrophic, it fills in that scar. Retinol also just overall improves your skin's texture and tone, so it's a great thing to have in your skincare routine anyway. It's just an added bonus that it helps with scarring. Now these next ones are a little bit more particular to specific ones. So with hypertrophic scarring, because it is a raised bump, something that you can do just every day, but you gotta make sure that you do it lightly and don't hurt yourself in the process, is to just put pressure on the scar. So because it's raised up a little bit, if you put pressure on the raised scar, over time it helps break down those cells. So we were just talking about how like promoting the growth of collagen in the skin is good to minimize the look of scars. Hypertrophic scarring is kind of collagen that's built up over the area. So what you want to do in that case is to put a little bit of pressure on it and it breaks it down so that it disperses it evenly. And it's not all just built up in one spot, such as the scar. Now this is not a method that's going to be like, you know, you put all that pressure on it and it just disappears. So this is going to be something that you want to do over time, over the course of a few weeks, few months. You'll notice that it goes down a little bit. This is not going to be something that just happens overnight, so please don't sit there and like put your finger to the site. Say that you've got like on your lobe or something, say that you've got a hypertrophic scar. Don't sit there and just like squeeze it hoping that it's going to break down instantly. It's going to be something that you want to work with over time. Just like an added little thing, you can do the creams and everything like that. The pressure helps to just break things down a little bit more evenly. So then these next two things are going to be a little bit more for atrophic scarring, and they're a little bit more extensive. So the first one, fillers, do exactly as what they're called. They fill. So with atrophic scarring, say you went and got fillers like you would just for your face to make everything look a little bit more filled out. You could get filler injected into an atrophic scar and it would essentially go from being that indent in your skin to just being raised a little bit more. And again, that one's a little bit more extensive and also pretty expensive. So if you want to avoid that, if you're perfectly fine dealing with a little bit of an indentation, fillers may be a little too excessive, but if you want it to be gone entirely, fillers could be a good option. And then another pretty extensive one for atrophic scarring would be needling or even like laser treatment. Both promote collagen growth. However, they're very extensive just to get rid of a little tiny scar left behind by a piercing. So again, unless you want that thing to be gone entirely, these last few ones may be a little bit way off, but that also kind of helps your skin in general. Now those things usually are on your face or like chest or something like that. Not sure if they're utilized too much in the ear area. That being said though, you would just need to talk with a professional about that. Again, I am not a professional. This is just what I found in research on how to minimize the appearance of scars left behind by piercings. Again, my biggest recommendation would be bio oil, just because that's the thing that I have used and I've noticed the biggest improvement with. I haven't used it on my nose scar just because I know within the next like month or so, I'm probably gonna get it re-pierced because at this point it's closed up. And once I put jewelry there, it won't be too noticeable because it'll be covering it. But with my navel piercing as well as my weight loss surgery scars, I've used bio oil every day on them and it helps continue with moisturizing them. So it helps promote healthy skin. But I've also noticed, especially with the weight loss surgery scars, that those have gone down tremendously. Again, you might find that just depending on how a piercing healed will depend on how much you can minimize that scar. So if you really want to get rid of hypertrophic or atrophic scarring, these are just some tips, tricks that you can utilize to help minimize the appearance of them. Some things will help get rid of the scarring entirely, or if you're perfectly fine with just a little noticeable scar, then these at-home remedies essentially may be up your alley. Let me know in the comments below if you've ever had a piercing, like you've taken it out and it left behind a scar. Like, what did you do to minimize the appearance, or did you really not care? Like for me, I plan to eventually take out my labret piercing. It's been fun, everything like that. I've tried different jewelry in it. It's just not what I really wanted. Like, it's cool and everything like that, but I do eventually want to take it out. And yes, a little scar will be left behind. Do I care that much? No. I'll probably put bio oil on it too to diminish the size of it, because it can help with like decreasing the diameter. But at the end of the day, I don't care too much. So I'm not gonna go the route of like needling or filler for it. But you may be more inclined for that because you just want that scar gone entirely. But let me know in the comments below what you've used before. Again, jojoba oil and bio oil are the ones that I've worked with before. There are definitely other types of oils and serums out there that are definitely usable for diminishing scar appearance. Those are just the two that I know off the top of my head that work. But let me know what methods you've gone with before. Also, like, especially let me know if you've tried the extensive ones like filler, needling, laser treatment. I'm pretty curious to know how well those work. Special thank you to my patrons. You can help support the channel on Patreon while having access to videos early, viewing patron-only content, and more. But that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a big old thumbs up. Go on down there, hit that subscribe button. Also hit the notification bell so you can be notified when I upload next. And until next time, bye all!